So in Washington, some lawmakers are calling on the administration to send more troops to the region. There appears to be bipartisan support for that. Here's Lindsey Graham.
There should be a dramatic increase of American presence along with our NATO allies in NATO nations that border Russia. We are sending fighters to Poland. We're sending additional soldiers to the Baltic nations, but our NATO allies also need to do more.
So you have to ask, where exactly would those troops go? What would they do? And what would be the purpose of having them there? Again, these are recommendations made by the architects of the policies that got us the invasion of Ukraine last night. So it's fair to ask those questions. Daniel Davis is asking those questions. He's a retired U.S. Army colonel. He's a senior fellow at Defense Priorities. We're happy to have him join us tonight. Colonel Davis, thanks so much for coming on. So let me just ask you quickly the broad question. What should be the American response to what we've seen?
Man, you know, the American response now should have been done beforehand, but it can still have a chance to work right now. And that is, we just need to come to just accept the reality of the situation, that Ukraine is never going to come in NATO. It was never going to come in NATO, and we recognize it's not going to. Now, once you come to that first just bottom line, then you have to say, why would we then want to keep the fiction that the NATO's door is open when we know it's not, when we know for sure that that is Putin's #1 red line? And look, this idea that Putin is saying that he wants to, reconstitute the USSR and it's all about, denying freedom to people, that's a smokescreen. He has been unambiguous since 2007, 15 years, consistently saying it's NATO expansion to my border in Ukraine. And he said as recently as December, as he has this big buildup, he said, I am deadly serious about this. I don't know why people don't believe me, but I mean this. Now he has shown that he means it. All we had to do was say, okay, we're going to, quote, give in on this one point, which is something we didn't want to do anyway. It's in our interest not to do that, but we didn't. And so we gave Zelensky false hope that if he just held out and didn't talk to the Putin, then that someday he would get that NATO protection. That was a false hope, and now that it's been exposed as such, even in this late hour, we can still say, okay, look, Zelensky, he needs to declare neutrality. He needs to say, we're not even going to seek NATO membership. We need to say it's not going to be extended, but we're going to continue to maintain our Article 5 obligations throughout NATO. So we're not going to be weakened by this, and it could stop the war, because that's probably the one thing that Putin is just not going to give in on, NATO on his border.
Yeah, I'm not sure what we would get out of having Ukraine and NATO anyway. I was always kind of confused. I mean, if you think about it through the lens of America's interests, I never understood why that was necessarily something we'd want, but...
Yeah, and that's one of the things about NATO expansion is it has to improve NATO for any member to come into it. And that is definitely not the case, because you're bringing in instability, and that would be bad for all 30 members.
Colonel Davis, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Always my pleasure. Thank you.